Alright, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the Iceberg video for Project M. Thank you guys for the 1,000 subscribers. We finally hit that milestone. I'm really hyped about that. If you aren't already subscribed, then make sure you hit that button down below and subscribe to the channel to get more notifications. So for those who don't know what an iceberg is basically an image, and this image is something that I created, I guess, for this video specifically, but it's usually an image corresponding to a topic. So on the top of the iceberg, it's normally going to be information that people are more aware of, and then on the bottom of the iceberg, it's going to be information that people are less aware of, and that's basically the premises of an iceberg. So this one has to do with Project M. I did make the iceberg image myself, and you guys can follow along with the image in the description. There should be timestamps in the video, so you can kind of click through at the parts that you want to see. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you guys ahead of time. Appreciate it. So the top of the iceberg, the first thing to really talk about is the new characters and new stages that are in Project M. Project M has a lot of new content in it, and it's a mod of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. So there's a lot of content in the game that was previously not in Brawl and added in from scratch to Project M. Two of the main things being Mewtwo and Roy in Project M. Now, for those who don't know, this was before Smash 4 came out, so Mewtwo and Roy were completely omitted in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and people actually really wanted them in a Smash Bros. Game again because they kind of missed them. Of course, there was like spiritual successors to those characters in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, being Lucario and Ike, but there still was a hole, and the people that really missed those characters really missed Mewtwo and Roy. Actually, in Project M, they actually managed to figure out how to clone Marth and clone Lucario and make those character slots separately into Roy and Mewtwo, and this ended up being the clone engine. The clone engine was definitely something ahead of its time for Project M's development. It was definitely something that really kind of just made Project M different from any other Brawl mod that was out there, because now they had two new original characters that weren't in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. The most interesting thing about this is mainly because if you wanted to add in brand new characters in Brawl before, you had to have them replace a previous character. So let's say if you wanted to add a character mod for Sephiroth in Brawl or something like that, Sephiroth would have to replace, let's say, Ike, for example, and you could not play Ike. But with the clone engine, you could create a separate character slot, and that character slot could be replaced by a completely different character while keeping the original character. So that's how they cloned Marth for Roy, and they cloned Lucario for Mewtwo, and then they changed them and made them much more different and much more close to their actual original counterparts. And this was really ahead of its time. No one else was really doing this. This seems very commonplace, is now the clone engine is kind of dead. It's kind of not really it's not really as useful as it used to be, but it was definitely, for like 2013, like very ahead of its time, especially in the Brawl modding community. There's a lot easier ways to create this type of content now, but really the clone engine was something that was ahead of its time, and I'm pretty sure like they weren't even leaking the code that was responsible for the clone engine, because like that's how elusive and that's how ahead of its time it really was. But of course now it's a little bit old and not really many people use the clone engine. There's different ways and easier ways to put characters in now. Mewtwo and Roy were definitely very important for Project M's development, and of course, you know, there's a lot of new stages as well. The new stages are completely different. They're completely new, created specifically for Project M, and it really sets it apart from other games in the series. Alright, the next thing on the iceberg, this is the goodbye, farewell that Project M left. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. It's pretty well known in the community. They say 6 years ago we started a journey born out of the shared love for competitive fighting games. Eventually that passion coursed through us and arsed us out and drew in more people into a small circle of friends, grew into a team. That team grew into an international community. Project M and its community have grown larger than it's ever been anticipated, and it's truly heartwarming to see all of the unforgettable connections and friendships that have been forged through this project. So this shutdown of Project M was like completely sudden and just like out of nowhere. No one really saw it coming. People were expecting a version 4.0 to come out, and there was a lot of rumors of like what content was going to be in that update. But of course we all know 3.6 was the final update for Project M, and we have more context on really why that happens, since it's now 2021 and this was 2015, so we obviously have a lot more context now about what happened. But obviously back then we didn't have all those answers, and it was completely out of nowhere and no one really saw it coming. A lot of the community branched off into different projects, or maybe just, maybe they got jobs in the community. Some people were still like modding Project M on the side. A lot of the community was definitely like very fragmented at the time, and it was definitely a huge blow to the community. You could say it really wasn't the same after this. A lot of people were definitely very sad. Of course though, I'll talk more deeply about what this meant and like what the consequences of this were and like what happened afterwards. But just know that this happened, and this was on the front page of the Project M website. Actually, up until this year, I want to say, or this past month, they finally changed it, and they started advertising Project Plus instead. Alright, the next thing on the top of the iceberg is the melee tech and wave dashing and L canceling. So part of this being a mod of Brawl is they actually added in all the advanced tech that was removed in Brawl to make Brawl into a more casual favored game. Project M's big aim was to bring in the melee audience and to bring in advanced techs from those games and bring them into Project M so they would end up playing those games in tournament, and it actually worked out. A lot of the melee community was playing Project M, and they really were enjoying it too. All the melee tech is pretty much here. There was a lot of good Brawl tech too that not a lot of people talk about. Reverse aerial rushing, for example, B-reverse. Adding like all those techniques from Brawl and Melee and putting them into Project M really made it a much different game. That was a big draw to Project M, was the addition of all this new advanced tech. So in Skatar 3 Emu Killer vs Mewtwo King Grand Finals for Project M, it was in 2014. One of the things that they did during tournament is Mewtwo was like such a big character at the time. He was probably the best. This was the 3.0 days, and Mewtwo was really just a huge menace, and he was by far the best character in the game. The grand finals in this tournament ended up being Mewtwo Dittos, and they both were utilizing Mewtwo's up B, except Emu Killer definitely knew the technique a little bit more than Mewtwo King, because Emu Killer was more of a Project M player instead of a melee-centric player. Mewtwo's best options at the ledge was refreshing the ledge by jumping off and then simply up being back on, and this became the whoop whoop because he was doing it so quickly. Not even Mewtwo King could really do it that well. It was honestly, it just became a meme, and the commentators were going crazy. So this spawned the whoop whoop meme that even the Melee community kind of recognizes this meme because it was pretty iconic for its time. I don't think Mewtwo can do it to the same lengths as he does it in this version of Project M, but it's still a advanced tech that's definitely stuck in the Project M culture. So under the surface, this is Project Plus. Project Plus is a mod that came out just recently, last year in its full version. It was something that was being worked on in the background for a long time. It's mainly made by Project M community members that really just love the game and they want to see it continue. So they added in a lot of things that were originally planned in the original Project M updates after 3.6. Not completely everything is there, but a lot of things are there, and they've changed a lot of the characters and balanced them in ways to make them fit this new meta. Some characters have been buffed, some characters have been nerfed, but mostly it's still very similar to the original Project M 3.6. They even added the inclusion of Knuckles, which Knuckles was a character that was actually being worked on in the background for probably a really long time. He was definitely a character that was planned really far back in the mod's development, and it was really when they were making, they after making Mewtwo and Roy, they decided they wanted to make original characters to Project M, and Knuckles was one of those characters, being a clone character of Sonic. He really fits the game really well. He doesn't feel like he's busted or broken. He has his own advanced tech that really kind of sets him apart from the rest of the cast, and he's actually pretty fun to play. Like, he's not overly busted or like overly bad or any way. He's actually a really fun character to play. So if you haven't played Project M in a really long time and you want to play the newest version, then I would recommend playing Project Plus just for Knuckles alone, just to try him out and have fun playing him. The next thing being the revamped movesets, and what I mean by this is a lot of characters in Project M are definitely way different from their previous iterations in other Smash Bros. Games. Ganondorf now having a float, and this float move can actually be used as a cape that can reflect projectiles as well, which definitely helps Ganondorf's neutral, because one of Ganondorf's biggest weaknesses is dealing with projectiles. A lot of characters have been changed to become more similar to their melee iterations. I've talked about this in a lot of my Project M breakdowns. Some characters have been changed to completely different iterations that are original to Project M, like for example Lucario, who has been changed to be sort of a Marvel vs. Capcom-esque character. It really just kind of shows the amount of love and care that was really put into this mod, because some characters definitely are trying to be something they've really never been before, and it really kind of pushes them to new levels that really haven't been seen in any other Smash Bros. Game. And this kind of goes into competitive Project M. Competitive Project M has been something that's been around since the early days of the mod, but it's gotten more and more competitive, especially probably around its peak in 2014 with 3.0 and the inclusion of Roy and Mewtwo, and even melee players taking the game pretty seriously. The community is definitely still around. There's still a competitive community to this day. There's been a lot of top players that have gone in and out of the community. Junebug was definitely one of the best Project M players in one moment of time, where Diddy Kong was definitely a really good character that time period as well. Donkey Kong has actually been a really good character as well, that was previously decided to be a mid-tier character but then rose into the high tiers thanks to Thunder's Reign, who was a reigning champ of Project M for probably, I want to say, one of the longest periods of times. And the reason why I say that is because he's still around to this day and still plays Project M, and he still plays his signature Donkey Kong. The competitive community is still growing, even though it's much smaller than what it used to be, but it's still something that people look forward to, and I would say maybe in these next couple years we might see some growth, as the Smash community in general is probably going to be a lot more nicer to the competitive scene after finding out like the cancellation of the Smash Tour and stuff like that, which again I will talk more about later. The new Zero Suit Samus models. So Zero Suit Samus was a character that definitely had a very ugly character model in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Some people forgot she was even a character because you had to hold down a certain amount of buttons on the character select screen just to play her. Well, actually, ironically, the character got a new character model that honestly looks much better in the final update for Project M. However, this update never came out because Project M 3.6 got cancelled. So what ended up happening is the character model and skins planned for this character model came out separately, and people were putting them in their own versions of Project M, because technically it was something that they considered and they wanted to be in a future update, but because Project M got inevitably cancelled, these character models never got officially put into a Project M update until Project Plus. Alright, the next thing we're going to talk about on the Iceberg is the Nintendo and Twitch canceled Smash Tour. This Smash Tour was basically a negotiation between the Smash community and Nintendo to actually get a sanctioned Super Smash Bros. tour for Smash 4 and for Super Smash Bros. Melee. This went to the point of even signing the contract, but Nintendo still pulling out at the end of the day. And one of the stipulations of this contract was that Nintendo told the Twitch and everyone else that if they wanted to get this Smash tour, they had to ban people from playing Project M in Twitch. So this started happening and people were kind of noticing it right away. You weren't able to stream Project M anymore, and people pretty much knew it was because the game was a mod. Unfortunately though, at the time people didn't know it was because Nintendo was actually pulling strings in the background to get the Project M community dissolved. It's kind of crazy how this went. It's kind of crazy how this came out probably a month or two ago, and it's really just kind of shows that Nintendo really doesn't like Project M, and they do know it exists. And it's really kind of scummy that they literally had the Smash Tour in writing to help grow the Melee and Smash 4 community, but Nintendo still pulled out at the end of the day once Smash Ultimate came out. And this didn't just stifle the growth of the Smash community in general. This pretty much was the nail in the coffin for Project M. This is why it shut down. This is why everything kind of just ended all suddenly. And it was really just caused by Nintendo. I'm sure you guys have seen videos on this though, but this was kind of the real reason why Project M shut down. So moving on to the next thing, we have the alternate costumes. Project M actually had some really innovative code. Other than the clone engine, they were able to figure out how to add in alternate costumes to go beyond the actual limit of the costumes that every character had. So natively in Brawl, Wario had the most amount of costumes, and he actually was the only character in Brawl that had alternate costumes. But the Project M dev team was able to figure out how to add alternate costumes for really any character. So you can see some examples of those, like being Dr. Mario, Armored Ike, the Punch-Out, Donkey Kong, so on and so forth. There's a lot of alternate skins in this game, and really it shows that the Project M development team was really doing things ahead of its time. Not only that, they were able to change things like Dr. Mario's Fireball, which would be Mario's Fireball. They changed it to a pill, which again, that was something that very unseen at the time, and it really kind of just showed the amount of effort that was really going into this Brawl mod, and really adding alternate costumes that have never been added in any other way before for its time. Now it's pretty much commonplace for these alternate skins and alternate costumes, but like I said, with the clone engine, this was pretty ahead of its time. The next thing being the Smash Bros. Legacy XP. So for those who don't know what Super Smash Bros. Legacy XP was, it was a mod of Project M once Project M shut down, and it was really kind of a spiritual successor in a way. Legacy XP had brand new characters in the game, like for example Ridley, Young Link, Shadow, so on and so forth, and they had those characters in the game along with that, it just being the standard Project M 3.6. So it was really just kind of a remix mod. It wasn't made to be like the actual successor to Project M, like what Project Plus is. It was just basically there for cosmetics, and if you wanted to play some more characters for fun. The mod actually was very common and very popular. It got to the point where they made their own version called Super Smash Bros. Legacy TE, which was a tournament edition of the mod that was made to be played in tournament. So this tournament edition had none of the new characters added, and just kind of kept the alternate skins to a minimum to avoid, crashing and potential issues with hitboxes and stuff like that. It does look really clean though. The Legacy TE version of Project M was definitely very important for Project Plus. It was definitely this mod team that kind of helped pave the way for Project Plus to be in the form that it is now. So these mods were very, very important for the Project M community. However, though, they did shut down pretty recently, I would say. What they did to the Project M community and what they offered has definitely been something that's very important for the community. The next thing on the list being the cut content from Project M. So on Project M's Twitter, we were kind of talking about this with the Zero Suit Samus skins. There was a lot of content that was planned for 3.6 and onward that never really saw the light of day. A lot of this content ended up being shown in Project Plus or just being given away separately, and some of that content being the Jigglypuff skin for Green Bandana Jigglypuff, which is a really iconic skin in Super Smash Bros. Melee, the Roy Awakening skin, which again I'll talk more about later, the Zero Suit Samus skins, stuff like that. There was definitely a lot of content that was planned but just never came out and never saw the light of day. But thankfully to Project Plus and these very talented modders, this content did end up seeing the light of day, so we do have it today. It's just on Project M's Twitter, they were definitely teasing this content and showing it off, and then when Project M inevitably shut down, it almost seems like this content was not going to see the light of day, but thankfully most of it did. So
yeah. Anyways, moving swiftly onward. Oh! Dance Sonic!
So the Wii freezing meme, this has to do if you're playing Project M on a Nintendo Wii. A lot of times when Brawl is being modded and when Brawl has a lot of mods on it, which Project M is basically a gigantic mod with lots of mods in it, it's very common for the Wii to freeze at random moments. People found out ways, and people were memeing that Sonic was causing Wiis to freeze and stuff like that, and it plays this really annoying sound. Definitely something that's been taken care of a lot more in like Project Plus and stuff like that, but yeah, it's very common when modding a Wii that it'll just freeze randomly, and sometimes this will happen in tournament sets. Paragon 2015 was actually one of the biggest areas of growth for Project M. It was one of the bigger tournaments for Project M, probably of all time. It was definitely a tournament that got a lot of people looking at the game, and it was definitely really big for its time. A lot of top Melee players, even like Hungrybox was playing at Paragon 2015. It was definitely a huge area of growth for the Project M community. This though did cause the secondary effect of, because more people were viewing Project M, this caused there to be a rebound effect where all that publicity ended up being a negative, because then Nintendo wanted really more of a reason to take down Project M because of how big it was growing. This kind of led into, again, the canceled Smash Tour and the inevitable Project M shutdown, but this was really a golden time for Project M. It was really a great time to be playing the game because the community was really big during this time, and Paragon 2015 didn't host Project M after this, but we obviously now know why. It's just something to look back at how big this tournament was and how it affected the community. Project M Turbo Mode. Project M Turbo Mode was actually something modded in for Project M. It was a own separate mode, and they would advertise this a lot in Project M trailers. This turbo mode is basically where you could cancel a move on contact immediately into another move. So you could, for example, playing as Fox, you could nair somebody and then immediately do a down air after nairing them, and then immediately do an up air after, as long as it's making contact. You can do these crazy long strings, and it almost just looks like TAS-like movement. It's just a fun mod. It's just a fun mode in Project M to play. It's something that really kind of just has that Marvel vs. Capcom feel to it. It's not something people take too seriously, but it's definitely something fun that people play, and it's something that's a part of the mod. Shoutouts to the mod team that figured out how to put turbo mode in the game. It's pretty well known in the community for just how crazy, it can make gameplay, and just, I'm sure you guys have seen the videos. I'm sure it's a pretty crazy mode. Hidden taunts and Easter eggs. There's a bunch of hidden taunts and Easter eggs that are in the game. Like, for example, Link can play the ocarina. Let's see, there's Sheik. She can play a harp now. This was new in Project Plus. Lucas can do a dance that he does in I'm sorry, not Lucas. Lucas does a dance that another character does in Mother 3. So on and so forth. There is a lot of Easter eggs in Project M. I'm just going to really show them on screen. I'm not going to show all of them, but this game has a lot of love put into it, and that's really just kind of shows with the amount of content that is in the game. Bowser winning a major. So Bowser was previously thought to be a low tier character, a bottom 5 character, a unviable character for a long period of Project M's lifetime. And then it wasn't until Project Plus where Bowser was heavily buffed and was made into a much more viable character. And doing this really kind of caused a expansion for Bowser mains. Now a lot more people started playing the character. And ironically, Malachi, one of the better Project M players out there, started playing Bowser in tournament, and he actually won a tournament. He won a major with Bowser in Project M. and people previously thought the character was a low-tier character and unviable. This really caused a lot of people to believe that Bowser was previously underrated and maybe he was overbuffed, but honestly, this pretty cool, honestly, for me and probably people in general, because winning a tournament with Bowser probably seemed very unlikely, even though he is a good character, but now he's even better. So he's not like one of the best. I'm not out here saying Bowser's broken or anything like that, but he was definitely very underrated before. That really just kind of shows that balance in Project M is really close than any other game in the Smash series. Ban Charizard. In a similar vein to Bowser, Charizard was kind of a underrated character as well. This meme kind of started where people started picking up Charizard in tournament, and Charizard was kind of doing pretty well. And this kind of caused the meme where people were just saying ban Charizard. It wasn't really serious. They're not really seriously saying ban Charizard. It's not like he's actually broken in any way. But again, it's similar to Bowser. It shows that like this character kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think Charizard got to the same levels that Bowser has gotten recently, but he definitely was a very underrated character and now is a character that more people play. The Fire Emblem Roy skins that are in Project M. So one of the skins they were making for Roy was an Awakening skin that was based off of his appearance in Fire Emblem Awakening, and this skin actually looked pretty crude and pretty bad when it was first shown off and it was first in a build. Honestly, people like complained and they let people know that, you know, they didn't really like it, and they made a much better version of this skin, and it looks night and day better, honestly. Like, just look at the before and then look at the after. There was a lot of love and care put into this mod, and it really just shows with the amount of effort that they put in their skins. Alright, the next thing that we're going to talk about deeper in this iceberg is the cut characters in Project M. Now, there was actually quite a lot of cut characters. We'll talk about the ones that we know for sure, and then there's like more that can be speculated and that are rumors and stuff like that. The ones that we know that were planned for Project M in future updates was actually first off Knuckles and Lyn were the very first ones known about, because there was a stream, and this stream was archived, of this guy playing a really early version of Lyn and Knuckles, and Lyn was a Fire Emblem character, and obviously Knuckles is from Sonic. These two characters were planned. Lyn was a sword fighter with also using bows as well, which was very in line with her character in Fire Emblem. And Knuckles, who at the time wasn't completely finished but was finished for Project Plus. These characters were very early in development and they weren't anywhere near from being finished, but they were pretty much rumored in the community for a very long time. You can now play somewhat finished versions of each of these characters. Obviously Knuckles being the most finished because he's in Project Plus, but Lyn is not in Project Plus. You can probably play fan-made, fan-finished versions of Lyn, and then you can kind of play those for yourself. Very fun characters to play. Both of them, I have played them before. There's also a bunch of leaked Project M builds, which again, I'll talk more about later. Lyn took a lot of inspiration from her introduction in Mugen as a mod in Mugen, and there's a person who had this specific voice that was also used in Project M as well, so you can actually look up Lyn in Mugen, and that version of the character took a lot of inspiration into the Project M version of the character. They use the same voice actor too. Knuckles definitely took a lot of inspiration from brawler type characters, Dudley from Street Fighter, Tekken. The next two characters that we know were in Project Plus was Isaac from Golden Sun and Sammy from Advance Wars. Isaac actually was nowhere near from being finished. If you play in any of the leaked builds, he was very, very early in development. There was a character model for both of them, and you can play them. They're just very, very early alpha. Some of their moves might crash the game, but people have went on their own and they have tried to finish these characters and tried to get them to the highest that they can bring them. I think there is like a finished version of Isaac out there. I'm not sure about Sammy. Again, those are fan-finished versions. Those are fans going out of their way trying to complete them. Isaac took some inspiration from, I would say, Toon Link and Ike. but definitely was like doing his own thing. He was definitely not similar to anyone else. He had a grab that was very far reaching, probably one of the farthest reaching grabs in the game. He definitely seemed like a projectile character that was made to like keep his distance and kind of keep people away. But again, he was very, very early in development. He was nowhere near being completed yet. And Sammy definitely took some inspiration from Snake, but obviously they were going to go change that down the line and make the characters completely unique from, again, their clones, because again, they're clone characters off the clone engine. The Slippy April Fools. This was a April Fools for Project M that showed off Slippy in the game. Now, Slippy was never planned as a character, or at least from my knowledge, at least I'm pretty sure he was just planned for this April Fools. Again, though, I'm not a developer for Project M, so I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure most people would contend that Slippy was actually not planned as a character. It looked like it was pretty much just a alternate skin for Fox just for the video. Project M was known for doing this a lot, for showing off things that never really were supposed to be in the game and just there to kind of build hype and build excitement. And Slippy being in Project M was one of those things. You can still find the video on YouTube. That also leads into the Ike Climbers. This showed off that the Project M development team was messing around with other ideas, like for example having two characters on screen at the same time, similar to the Ice Climbers. And what they created were the Ike Climbers, so it was basically to show off that this was possible, and they were actually getting this to work in the mod. There was people trying to make an item where they could potentially replicate this and make for maybe like a double cherry item and make the characters duplicate from each other, kind of similar to the Ice Climbers. They were actually trying to make this into a game mode or some sort of function, but it never saw the light of day. You can see obviously the video on YouTube showing off the Ike Climbers for the first time. It's just something for Project M history. The Project M development team, the PMDT, that's basically what the PMDT is. They're the Project M development team. Very talented group of modders, artists, so on and so forth, that were known for working on Project M and working on the mod. Now, of course, when Project M was finished, a lot of them had to go off and do their own thing, and this kind of leads off into Icon's Combat Arena. Not all of them joined different games and different mods like Icon's Combat Arena. Some people just did their own thing or, you know, moved on basically. Icon's Combat Arena was actually a game that was made to be basically Melee for the PC audience. Now, obviously, it didn't have Melee characters in the game. It didn't have Fox and Marth and so on and so forth. But they had characters that were pretty much there to fill the void of those characters. So, for example, if you liked playing Fox, you'll like playing Kid, the GOAT character in this game. But this game failed horribly, actually. I made a video about it a long time ago. This game had a pretty horrible business model. They dumped a lot of their money in advertising and didn't really dump it into the game itself. They were so swallowed up with trying to just appeal to the Melee community that it really didn't help the game at all, because the game itself was pretty bad. It had a decent alpha to it, like it had a start to it, but obviously paying money for it and so on and so forth, there was a crazy amount of microtransactions in the game as well that were just there to kind of just get costs and get people to pay them money. There was also the entire cast wasn't available. You had to either buy them or play like a crazy amount of hours just to get a character. It was really not fun, and it really just like they had a lot of characters that were complete ripoffs of certain characters like Marth, Falcon, and Ganondorf, and Fox. They did have original characters too, but those characters were behind paywalls. You couldn't play those characters without either getting lucky and like unlocking them or paying for the actual version of the game. It definitely just failed horribly though. Most people probably don't know what the game is. Like it's definitely like starting to become something that people don't really know what it is, and it really just kind of shows you can't really do something like this anymore. You can't really make something for an audience and expect that it's just gonna work, because you can't make something cheap. Basically, when you're trying to to compete with Melee, when you're trying to compete with actual Smash Brothers, it has to be a good game. It can't be, you know, a half-assed attempt. And I know they were probably trying, but it just wasn't enough. Now, what Icon's Combat Arena is doing today, they've actually been bought out by somebody who was previously on the team. They were bought out, and now they're just trying to rebrand, and they rebranded as Vortex Rising. Icon's Combat Arena was previously off Steam. It was actually removed from Steam, but now it's back. You can play the final version of the game. They're just trying to rebrand, though, and basically start from scratch, which honestly is probably the right way to go. I mean, I wish them luck. They got a lot of hate because people thought this was the reason why Project M was shut down, was so they could cut their losses and work on a different game. It actually wasn't really that. It was just a coincidence that they hired Project M developers to help make the game. It definitely did taint the game. It definitely didn't help it at all. That people really didn't know why Project M shut down at the time, and it really kind of hurt Icon's Combat Arena. But again, like I said, the game was really unoriginal and kind of trash, so it was only inevitable for where it went, really. Going deeper into the Iceberg, the first PM leak of Knuckles and Lyn. So this is the stream that I referenced earlier that had Knuckles and Lyn shown off in the build. And this was very early on. I believe this was before 3.0. So this was very early development of these characters, and it really just kind of showed, you know, a footprint of what they were supposed to be. This was like the first real like Project M leak too. And I don't know if it was intentional or not. The guy was just like playing it for fun. It was definitely rumored for a while though that these characters and this type of content was in the game, because there was people that would either play test the game and then they would leak information about it. It is cool that Knuckles did see the light of day, and Knuckles did finally get officially released in a way in Project Plus. But Lyn has not been officially released, but other people have decided to put their own spin on the character and finish them themselves. Project M 64. So this started out as kind of a meme because in one of their trailers for an April Fool's, they showed off that Project M was going to be having a Nintendo 64 mode. This actually branched off into its own mod where a guy was basically making the whole game look like a Nintendo 64 game, and it actually had a lot of people really interested into it. It's definitely something that people wanted to try out. This was definitely something that Project M teased, and it kind of just started to become its own thing. And I believe now there is a mod out there where you can play the Smash 64 models if you are interested in that. The next thing being the Project M concept art. This ended up leaking after Project M was shut down. There was actually a crazy amount of concept art that was going to show off a lot of content that was going to be in Project M. For example, they had concept art for Sonic skins. There was going to be, there was the Jet Set Sonic, which we have, and then there was another Sonic skin that did not see the light of day. There was Sonic skins that were planned to be based off of other characters, like Eggman, Shadow, which did end up happening, potentially Big the Cat, potentially Silver, so on and so forth. There was a lot of rumors at the time that these skins were actually going to be a thing. There was people on Reddit that were definitely talking about these leaks. Back in the day, there was someone who basically came out on Reddit and said Lyn, Sammy, Isaac, Skull Kid, and Knuckles were planned to be worked on in Project M. They obviously said none of the Clone Engine characters were set in stone. And then what really kind of helped this leak on Reddit is they said that Power Suit Samus, Light Suit Samus, and Mass DDD were planned skins, and pretty much all of this was confirmed to be true. There was a plan for a Power Suit Samus, which is seen from this concept art. There is also a Light Suit Samus that was also planned, which did see the light of day and which did come out. This stuff was pretty much real, pretty much confirmed to be legit. There was concept art for Lyn, and then there was people discussing on what her potential moveset could be and like different ideas on certain attacks, so on and so forth. Really kind of showing that the art team really did care about the mod, and there was a lot of people that were definitely working on it behind the scenes. Number 47. So this number actually was a meme in the community for a long time, and we actually have an answer about what number 47 was supposed to be. The truth is, and this was confirmed in a Reddit thread where somebody explained the meaning behind number 47, there was actually no meaning whatsoever for number 47. And this sounds crazy because a lot of people do believe that there is meaning to it and there is some sort of meaning behind it, but it wasn't given meaning until they decided they needed to give it meaning, if that makes any sense. So the original idea to number 47 is they would basically place this number in trailers. It was just a number to appear on screen there to get people excited. People looked at the number though and they thought this must be teasing something, and probably is teasing a character. Project M all the time would reveal and tease characters all the time. They would say Ridley was in the game, they would say Pichu's in the game. All this never was really something that they were considering. It was mostly just a joke to get people hyped. They would do this all the time in trailers, but 47 people thought that was actually a clue to what content that they were planning in the future. And what people decided was they found out that, hey, number 47, event number 47 in Melee is literally where you fight on top of Majora's Mask. Literally in Melee, event number 47, you fight on top of Majora's Mask. And people began to think that must mean Skull Kid from Majora's Mask is planned as a character. This is an obvious tease to him being included into the game. Now, at the time, Project M was not planning on doing that. They weren't planning on adding Skull Kid, but then they realized that they probably should add some sort of meaning to number 47, and they did actually decide to work on Skull Kid. He was actually a planned character at one point in time. Unfortunately though, this never saw the light of day. Skull Kid never was leaked. People just know that they were working on him and they were trying to get him to work. Really though, that just shows you that number 47 had absolutely no meaning to it whatsoever. So it really just was a number that was given meaning after people wanted it to have some sort of meaning behind it. So you could really say that it was a tease to Majora or Skull Kid being in Project M, but really it was just there as a number to get people hyped. The ironic thing though is when people get really conspiratorial and they realize that Project M had its final shutdown on December 25th, 2015. And if you take the 25th plus 12 plus 15, you get, lo and behold, number 47. Alright, so going lower on the iceberg, the final tier in this iceberg video. The first thing on here is the Project M development build that 4chan leaked after the shutdown. What happened here was after Project M was put out of commission in 2015, a bunch of leaks were on 4chan, and in these leaks there was characters that were never before seen in Project M, and I brought this up earlier. Lyn was shown off, Knuckles was shown off, Isaac was shown off for the first time in this build. Very, very early versions of these characters, they obviously weren't finished. And there was also certain things like certain bug fixes and character changes in these as well. Like for example, Link and Yoshi's grab in 3.6 had some errors and bugs to it, and actually in this version of Project M they were actually fixed. So there was actually quite a few bug fixes in this version. So this was definitely like a teaser for some things that were meant to come in the future. But obviously not everything in this build was completely finished. A lot of people ripped the assets from this mod, this build, and they basically just decided to do whatever they wanted with it. This build didn't have absolutely everything in it, but it did have a lot of things. I'm pretty sure Sammy was in the code of this build as well. It's just she wasn't actually in the build. You couldn't choose to play as her, but her assets were in there as well. So that's how people found out about her. The next thing in this is the Project M died for this. This was actually a really cursed subreddit that was a big proponent of Project M. It was kind of upset that it died, and it was pretty much an anti-Icons Combat Arena subreddit. It was pretty like anti-Smash, establishment. Don't get me wrong, there were some funny posts on this subreddit. Some people probably don't even know this subreddit even existed. Icons Combat Arena, the guy who bought out Icons Combat Arena, would actually go on this subreddit and like ask people questions on what not to do if he was trying to rebuild Icons Combat Arena, and some people shit on him, but he was actually trying to have legit discussion with people on here on like how to make a platform fighter that was bad and try to make it good. So he actually like went on here to try to get advice from people. It was a pretty cursed subreddit, I will say that. It was definitely very, very cursed. There were some funny things on here though, but just mostly really, really cursed stuff. The next thing being the Project M CC. So this was actually a build that people were making on the side as Project M was canceled, or after Project M was canceled, I should say. This plan for this build was basically what ended up being Project Plus in a way, but this was like by different people. So this was basically people trying to take the characters that were canceled, like for example Knuckles, Lyn, Isaac, Sammy, and they were trying to finish the characters to make them in some sort of playable format so people could play them and enjoy them. This was also including a bunch of things that were planned in the Project M 4chan build and stuff like that, and ideas that bug fixes to 3.6 were also in this build. But it was kind of a mess, I'm not gonna lie. This was a organization of this team wasn't really up to snuff. It was just kind of something that was around in the background. I'm not sure if many people knew it even existed, but it was called Project M CCC. Or I'm sorry, it was called Project M CC. I added an extra C. The next thing being the 5th character in Project M. Now, I kind of referenced this earlier. This is definitely something that not a lot of people knew about, and especially myself. Someone in a YouTube comment actually let me know of some of the characters that were actually planned aside from Skull Kid. So I did mention earlier that Skull Kid was planned because the number 47, and they wanted to add some sort of meaning to that number, to that tease. So Skull Kid was a character that they did work on. I believe there were some leaks like of animations and maybe some screenshots, but again, he was like very, very early in development. It wasn't like he was really in a playable format. There were definitely a lot of other characters that people were throwing around. There were a lot of ideas that people had at the time. And again, this is before like Smash Ultimate and Smash 4, so a lot more characters were on the table. They were not trying to have the same characters that are in the official Smash Brothers games in Project M. So at the time, Dark Samus wasn't in any Smash Brothers game at all. It wasn't until Ultimate, until Dark Samus was put into the game as a clone of Samus. But at the time, they actually were considering putting Dark Samus in Project M. Now, I'm sure she probably would have been similar to her Ultimate version. She probably would have had some similarities to Samus. Maybe being completely different, I don't know. But again, these characters didn't really get that far in development compared to Knuckles, Lyn, Sammy, and Isaac. Paper Mario was another character that was thrown around. He was actually pretty high in demand too. I remember people on Smash boards and Reddit definitely wanted him to be a character, and they definitely considered him. Dixie Kong as well was another character. I'm sure she probably would have had some sort of relation to Diddy Kong, maybe in a way. She might have been like a clone of Diddy Kong. And actually, a character I had no idea that was even being considered was Psyduck. And I'm not even sure if this is 100% legit, but this guy in this YouTube comment seemed pretty credible to me. I know it's pretty cringe to quote a YouTube comment, but with a lot of these Project M rumors and Project M stuff, you kind of have to take those things for what they are, because we don't have people officially coming out and saying what was here and what was not. A lot of people did play builds of Project M and did beta test builds, and I'm sure those people are probably the people that know the most amount of stuff. Again though, I'm not saying a character like Psyduck was anywhere from being finished. He could have just been an idea or something they drafted up. But there was definitely a 5th character planned. I think that was their max amount they were willing to go. And those are like the characters that they were considering. That's pretty much the deepest side of the iceberg. Alright, so that's the video. I hope you guys enjoy. This video took me a minute to make, so I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I hope everything goes well. So, peace out.